بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حميم تنزيل من الرحمن الرحيم كتاب فصلت آياته قرآنا عربيا لقوم يعلمون.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with Surah Fussilat and ayah number 41. Ayah number 41, we recited it last time. So we have here 41 and 42. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الذين كفروا بالذكر لما جاءهم وإنه لكتاب عزيز لا يأتيه الباطل من بين يديه ولا من خلفه تنزيل من حكيم حميد. Indeed, those who disbelieve in the message after it has come to them, and indeed it is a mighty book, falsehood cannot approach it from before it or from behind it. It is a revelation from a Lord who is wise and praiseworthy. So the first ayah, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِالذِّكْرِ لَمَّا جَاءَهُم. The previous one was warning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from those who make ilhad. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُلْحِدُونَ فِي آيَاتِنَا. والإلحاد الميل عن الصواب. Those who deviated from the truth, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned them that they will be among the people of the hellfire. So now this is, after that, this is in general. This is all of those who deviate. Now this is a specific type of disbelief, or the specific or a different or a category of the disbelief, because disbelief can be in many different things. So here, إن الذين كفروا بالذكر لما جاءهم. He says here, Imam Sa'di rahimahullah, ثم قال تعالى إن الذين كفروا بالذكر أي يجحدون القرآن الكريم. Those who disbelieve in a dhikr, which is al-Quran al-Karim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned a dhikr as the Quran in many verses. So, and this can also, whether it's a specific or a category of kufr, or explaining more of those who يلحدون في آياتنا, those who divert away from the proper understanding of the Quran, in the category of disbelief. So he says أيجحدون القرآن الكريم المذكر للعباد جميع مصالحهم. Al-Quran reminds the people of all of their masalih. Al-masalih from al-maslaha, which is the benefits, the good things for them. الدينية والدنيوية والأخروية. The benefits in worldly matters, the hereafter, religious, and the hereafter. المعلي لقدر من اتبع. Al-Quran mu'li from al-ulu. That means the Quran elevate the level, al-qadr, the measure, the level of those who follow the Quran. لما جاءهم, they disbelieved in it when it came to them. He says نعمة من ربهم, a favor from their Lord, على يد أفضل الخلق وأكملهم, from the best of the creation of Allah and the most perfect among them, which is the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. So the Quran, the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, came to them, which shows the ease of it. They didn't have to go to it. It comes to them in ease. The truth came to them. Even though the truth, people ought to go as far as they can. They should sacrifice to find the truth. They should do whatever it takes. And this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in the hearts of the human beings. But a human being, he thinks that to know the truth is not worth sacrificing. That means this is a person that he chooses to be upon deviation and corruption. The truth should be the most valuable thing for someone to know, because it's either truth or falsehood. So when the truth came to them, لما جاءهم, so this is ni'mah from Allah, great favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and came to them through the best of all of the creation of Allah, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. والحال, he says, and the state, the matter is, إنه وإنه لكتاب عزيز. That means this book, kitabun, a book جامع لأوصاف الكمال. وإنه لكتاب, a book that has all the perfect the meanings. عزيز, عزيز أي mighty أي منيع من كل من أراده بتحريف أو سوء. العزة here, it's a mighty book. That means it is so strong that no one is able to change it. No one will be able to change it. أي منيع from المنع, withholds people, takes people away from anyone that wants to make tahrif, alteration, physically to change the Quran. They can make tahrif to the meaning of it, their own distortion. Yes, but the book itself, no one would have the ability to change it forever, meaning that it will be lost and the people cannot have the Quran the way it was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, is the meaning of وَإِنَّهُ لَكِتَابٌ عَزِيز. So no matter what they do, no matter what they've done, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserved the book of Allah from the beginning to the end with every letter of it as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed. لا يأتيه الباطل من بين يديه ولا من خلفه. That means this book, the Quran, لا يأتيه الباطل, the batil does not come to it, من بين يديه ولا من خلفه, from behind it or from the front of it. So so as you see here, when the ayah إن الذين كفروا بالذكر لما جاءهم, when it came to them, وإنه. So وإنه here is like, this is like the حال of the dhikr, while the state of the Quran. That's why he says here والحال. So وإنه, this is حال. So this جملة وإنه لكتاب عزيز, this is basically the حال, the state of it. And this is now the characteristics of the Quran. The first one, that it's dhikr. So it's a reminder for people, because the nature of the human beings is that they forget. And if someone is not attached to the Quran, that means they will be in state of ghafla, forgetting. So the Quran reminds. And if they forget, they would lose. And when it's time to attain the greatest attainment, if they had forgotten it, they would lose. So the ghafla or forgetfulness causes the people to lose. So we have to be constantly reminded so that we attain al-falah or success. The second thing is إن الذين كفروا بالذكر لما جاءهم, that it came to them. And it's still coming to the people and it's still preserved. So this is a great favor, and it's one of the characteristics of the Quran. And the third thing is that it's aziz. So it's kitabun aziz, strong, as we heard the meaning of what's mentioned here. When someone has izzah, that means he protects himself. So the Quran is protected. Also, one of the meaning of al-izzah of the Quran, that it's, as some of the ulama, they said in the Tafseer, يغلب ولا يغلب. Aziz, strong. That means it defeats and it never defeats. So no one can defeat the arguments of the Quran. No one can defeat the hujaj, the evidences of the Quran. This is always the hujjah of the Quran, aziz. So just learn the Quran, and no one will be able to defeat the arguments and the hujjah and the evidences of the Quran. Put aside all of these other things that people might rely upon, philosophy and this and that. It's sufficient for us, the book of Allah, to have the clear evidences for the da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you have here لا يأتيه الباطل من بين يديه. Another characteristics, that the Quran لا يأتيه الباطل, the significance of how the ayah says لا يأتيه الباطل, the batil does not come to it, من بين يديه ولا من خلفه, not in front of it nor behind it. The meaning of this is that al-batil or falsehood can never even come and contaminate it whatsoever. In any state, there is no way whatsoever. And that's why all of the jihad, all of the directions here are mentioned. لا يأتيه الباطل, the batil does not come to him, whether it's from in front of it or behind it. He says, أي لا يقربه شيطان من شياطين الإنس والجن. No shaitan from shayateen al-ins or the jinn cannot even come close to the Quran. لا بسرقة, with stealing. No one can steal any verse from it or hide anything from it. ولا بإدخال ما ليس منه, or to add إدخال, to insert in the Quran what's not in it. به ولا بزيادة ولا نقص, nor increase or decrease. As one of the times of hundreds of years ago, someone wanted to, it was a story mentioned in the books of At-Tarajim, that a man wanted to test, really, I want to see, he was a Jew or Christian, and he wanted to see the miraculous nature of the Quran. So he got the Torah or the Injil, and he added things, he took things away, and he spread it in the market among the Jews and the Christians, and everything was fine. There was no one really caught what he did. And when he did the same thing for a mushaf, added the words and decreased something, the whole thing would become in uproar. Once he spread something like this, and this is still today, this is true. Imagine when someone finds a copy of the Quran, for example, with a page missing or with a word that is missing, the whole entire ummah would be able to catch that. So this is how the Quran is preserved. He says ولا بزيادة ولا نقص فهو محفوظ في تنزيله. It's protected when it was coming down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. محفوظة ألفاظه ومعانيه. Its alfaz and its meanings, its words and its meanings are protected. محفوظة. قد تكفل من أنزله بحفظه. Who's the one that guaranteed that it's protected? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that brought it down. That's why it's not in the work of the human beings. Means, yes, but it's beyond their capacity. كما قال تعالى إنا نحن نزلنا الذكر وإنا له لحافظون. Indeed, we brought down the dhikr, the Quran, and we will protect it and guard it. So تنزيل من حكيم حميد. Tanzil, it's brought down, and tanzil is a noun to show that it's something that is well established without any doubt whatsoever. في خلقه وأمره. حكيم, in his creation and his commands, the most wise. يضع كل شيء موضعه وينزلها منازلها. He put everything. يضع كل شيء موضعه. He put everything in its place. وينزلها منازلها. And he put it down in its place. Yunzil al-manazil is the places, is the place of coming down to levels of establishments. So everything is put in its place, every word in its place. You cannot, if you change it with something else, you can't. This is miraculous. Hamid, praiseworthy, على ما له من صفات الكمال, because of what it has from the characteristics of perfection, ونعوت الجلال, the exaltation, وعلى ما له من العدل والإفضال, and what's in it from justice and إفضال from الفضل, the bounties. فلهذا كان كتابه مشتملا على تمام الحكمة. So the book, the Quran, مشتمل, includes in it every perfect حكمة, وعلى تحصيل المصالح, and to attain all of the benefits والمنافع, ودفع المفاسد, and push away any harm, والمضار, and مفاسد, corruption, and any harm, التي يحمد عليها, that makes it praiseworthy. So this is some of the characteristics of the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning by mentioning these characteristics, that how can you be in ghafla? How can you turn away from a book that this is its characteristics? So that's then if you go back, فَإِنِ اسْتَكْبَرُوا, it's because of the arrogance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned against the arrogance and those who make ilhad in the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the same thing in the level of deviation, even if it's not in the state of disbelief, those who alter and we talked about it, they alter the attributes of Allah or some of the verses of the Quran. How can they do that when the Quran is kitabun aziz? Is a mighty book. It's not for you to say that this is may cause similarities or this does not cause similarities. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So if it was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have made it in a different way. So and also the izzah of the Quran makes it important that if you turn away from it, it turns away from you, because the Quran is aziz. When they say Al-Quran is aziz, that means you have to give it all of your senses and all of your attention. When you have something that is honorable or honored, it doesn't like to be looked down upon or turned away from. So that means it has to be exalted. You have to give it the best of your times, the best of your effort. You have to, work on it to benefit from it. You have to reflect upon it and all of the different duties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obligations that He ordered us to observe with the Quran, because it's kitabun aziz. So reciting it, memorizing it, reflecting upon the meanings of it, understanding the meaning of it, and acting according to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it's kitabun aziz, because it's a mighty book that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it in such a way. So إن الذين كفروا بالذكر, this is agreed upon that الذكر here refers to the Quran, those who disbelieve in the Quran. And that's why also in the da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how can someone disbelieve in a book like this and believe in something else? Compare what you believe in to the book of Allah. There's no comparison. No one can ever see even any similarity or closeness, because the Quran, nothing is the like of it. And part of the izzah of the Quran, لا يأتيه الباطل من بين يديه ولا من خلفه تنزيل من حكيم حميد سبحانه وتعالى. And then the ayat afterwards talk about how the evil things that they do, ما يقول لك إلا ما قد قيل للرسل من قبلك, is just the same nations are doing the same thing and nothing new that they're doing. But we'll stop here, inshallah. We'll continue, inshallah ta'ala, next time with more of the meaning. So as we see the benefits here, and adding towards the previous verses, this is some of the characteristics of the Quran that we can see clearly, and we act according to these characteristics. And if you want the haqq, the ultimate truth, it's in the book of Allah. And we will see how then the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ nowadays, how they are disservicing themselves when they don't turn to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way it ought to be. And even students of knowledge, even for those who are concerned about the religion, you would find turning to all kinds of things and not the book of Allah. And when a person is busy with studying the books of fiqh and aqidah and so on, this is a must. But the person should not ignore himself and ignore his need to constantly read and reflect upon the Quran, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's how the hearts become softened. And especially at night, when a person gets up at night and recite the Quran, makes the night prayer, this is always to exalt the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be constantly connected to it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept, inshallah. If you have any questions, please go ahead. And you have the attendance code is dhikr, Aziz. It says here, one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Muhaymin. Can you please give us some description of this name of Allah? Can we say the Quran is protected to end of times because it's Allah's words? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Muhaymin, and this is clearly stated in the Quran, in Surah Al-Hashr. And the word Muhaymin has all kinds of comprehensive meanings to it. And comes from when something have haymana or hayman, it's something that is refers to be upon all kinds of things, to be upon things. When someone, for example, haymana ala shay, that means he's in charge of it, he's upon it, he's taking care of it, he's maintaining it, he knows it very well. So that means he, subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that is running the affairs of his creation, even with every breath that they take. And the ulama mentioned other meanings, the one that is entrusted, the one is seeing his creation, comes with the meaning of al-raqib, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching, is seeing everyone. And this is also one of the meanings of it. And it takes for muhayminan alay, over all of the previous revelations. That means it's takes over, right? So brings the meaning of it, of what's before, and knowing the hidden matters and what's in the hearts also. So it's a very comprehensive name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can we say that the Quran is protected to the end of days? Yes. And there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that when the Quran at the last of the last, after all of the major signs of the hour, so after the descending of Isa alayhi salam, and after the killing of Ad-Dajjal, and after the believers, Allah knows best how long they're going to stay on the face of earth, after the death of Isa alayhi salam, and then a wind will come and take the souls of the believers. So only the disbelievers will be on the face of earth, only them. Then the Quran will be lifted from the hearts. So, and this is where these people, where the day of judgment will occur on them. So this is at the end of all things now. Uh, طيب, there's a question here. Allah's name is Aziz. Was the governor at the time of Yusuf alayhi salam also named Al-Aziz? Or was it a title for the governor? No, yeah, it's with attribute, with, I'm sorry, with idafa. With, what's idafa? That means Azizu Misr. So not Al-Aziz, but Azizu Misr. Aziz of Egypt. So the ruler of Egypt. So you cannot name someone Aziz. It shouldn't be, even though it's not Al-Aziz. But if you have an idafa to it, Aziz kada, Aziz something, and it should be avoided. People should not name, I know that there's some people they name Aziz, even though it's not Al-Aziz, like when you name someone Karim and not Al-Karim. So it takes away the person from having the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's praising someone in such a way that gives might and so on. It's to be avoided, as the ulama they say now. Is it valid to apply all of the attributes from the names of Allah to the Quran? For example, Allah is the most wise. So the Quran, the speech of Allah, is full of wisdom. Can this be done with all names of Allah as way to reflect upon the Quran? Definitely, in a way that it doesn't necessarily talks about the characteristics of the Quran, but it shows the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way the Quran says things. So you would see all the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you're reading the Quran. Some of it is by the actions of Allah, in the creation of Allah, in the rise and falls of nations, the struggle between the truth and falsehood. Like, for example, in the name of Allah, Al-Muntaqim, the one that retaliate, does not leave injustice to exist forever. Everyone has to be brought to the justice from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it's not this life, it is the hereafter. Things like this now. And this is one of the good ways, and many ways, of course, but one of the good ways to, when we're reading the Quran, is what happens when we're reading the Quran. We're getting to know Allah. As we said, and we heard that we read it in the Tafseer, that our job in this life is to know Allah, ta'arruf ala Allah, to get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the only way for a person to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by reading the words of Allah. So the more we turn away from the Quran, even if a person had heard it before, he loses the ma'rifah, he loses the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a constant reminder of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with his names and attributes. What dua can we read to take refuge in Allah from arrogance, especially with relatives and their aqidah is not right? Now, as far as the arrogance, there's a general dua of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and especially the morning and the evening ones, that ends with أعوذ بالله من شر نفسي وشر الشيطان وشركه وأن أقترف على نفسي سوءا أو أجره إلى مسلم اللهم عالم الغيب والشهادة فاطر السماوات والأرض رب كل شيء ومليك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أعوذ بك من شر نفسي وشر الشيطان وشركه وأن أقترف على نفسي سوءا أو أجره إلى مسلم. One of the morning adhkar and the evening adhkar, you seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evil of oneself and from the evil consequences of it, that you would that you would harm others, and things like this. So this is, if you go through the adhkar of the morning and the evening, يا حي قيوم برحمتك أستغيث أصلح لي شأني كله ولا تكلني نفسي طرفة عين, to rectify all of my affairs. So these types of things is needed on a daily basis. And a person can make dua, in general. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-kibr. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-riya. Allahumma ja'alni min al-mutawaddi'in. Something of that nature. But this is sufficient, inshallah ta'ala. Yani, as I said, it's in principle, you can name someone Aziz. Right? So Aziz like this. But it's something that should be avoided, as some of the ulama they mentioned, but it's not wrong if someone's name is Aziz, not Al-Aziz. No. And that's why it's better to say Abdul Aziz, to name Abdul Aziz, rather than naming someone Aziz. If someone's name is Aziz, he doesn't have to change it. But if a person has a choice naming a child, he should not. يعني it's better for him to name him Abdul Aziz than to name him Aziz. But again, is it haram? No. Is this okay to make Quranic du'as in dua? Yes, as long as if you are in salah in sujood, for example, you can say it as a dua, but not as reciting the Quran. Anything else, inshallah? طيب. Barakallah fikum, inshallah. Inshallah, with the time changing, because now this is the time where the salah time changes rapidly, so we need to pay attention to the time after Fajr, and also very soon also with the time changing, the time saving also will. So inshallah ta'ala will send messages for that, inshallah. Barakallah fikum. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.